This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome to another episode of Business by the Numbers. I'm your host, Hunt Demarest, CPA with Parmelis & Associates. I always say that funding a retirement is probably one of the best ways to save taxes. Now that we are getting close to the lovely end of the year, which means tax season is right around the corner, a lot of people are thinking taxes and calling me, emailing me, and asking, how much should I put in my retirement account? I thought, what better thing to go through this week, because I imagine some of you are probably having the same thoughts in your head. Everything about retirement is what we're going to talk about this week. Before we get into that, I just want to stop and say thank you to you and the rest of the dedicated listeners. Remember, if you want to hear your question answered on here, if there's a topic you would like to hear me discuss, or maybe you want to be a guest on here, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. And lastly, we cannot forget our dedicated sponsors, NAPA and Promotive, for being such loyal supporters of the show. If you need to find the next rock star, if you need to hire the next top talent, give Promotive a call. And if you're tired of your shop management software, you want to get into the new age, give NAPA a call, and I'm sure they'll help you out. Hey, did you know NAPA is on-site training plus 6 days a week support? It all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business and how you run it. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Let us prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. Visit them online at napatrax.com. That's NAPATRACS.com. It's time to hire a superstar for your business. What a grind you have in front of you. Great news, you don't have to go at it alone. Introducing Promotive, a full-service staffing solution for your shop. Let them do the heavy lifting and enlist your hiring partner online at gopromotive.com. This, like a lot of topics, is a little bit more complicated than it is on the surface. Just like we were talking about, and I want to have a quick little aside because we talked about, I'm not sure it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about setting up your business when I talked about my own rental property of putting that into an LLC. And so one of my clients actually reached out to me and heard the episode and said, hey, I got a property in Tennessee. And I said, this is why on the episode, I said, be careful. Talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer about this because, well, now the client might hear this before we even talk. But in Tennessee, we got to be a little bit more careful about putting stuff into an LLC. Most all other states, it does not matter whether it's you or the LLC for taxes. Tennessee is one of the few states that does. So if you're in Tennessee, do not go blindly and listen to Hunt's episode and forget the part where he says, hey, talk to your accountant before you get this into an LLC. But just like we're talking about this week, we're talking generalities with retirement accounts. We're talking generalities with all different kinds of retirement accounts. We're talking generalities with people that are my age, people that are 40, people that are 70. And so be careful with this. This is not meant to replace a financial advisor. If this is to do anything, you should have a little bit of an idea, and this is kind of a refresher and giving you a couple tips here or there. Or if you've never talked about this stuff before, hopefully this gives you an interest, a little bit about how these things work, and maybe to get you on a better plan for next year. Because we'll talk about a little bit at the end here. Unless you have this stuff set up right now, this is probably a 2025 plan, and that's okay. But if you do have this stuff set up, all the stuff we're going to talk about right now is all actionable. We can all do it before the end of the year, and almost all of this is going to save you some tax money. Let's get into this. We really are going to kind of break this into 3 different kinds of retirement accounts. So the first one is what we call a traditional or a Roth IRA. The traditional or a Roth IRA is different than the other 2 that we're going to talk about, being that it has nothing to do with your business. If you go out and you go to Wells Fargo, if you go to whoever you bank with, whoever you insure with, a ton of people offer traditional IRAs. In a lot of sense of this, it's like a checking account, like a brokerage account, very simple to set up, virtually free. The only difference is there's limits on how much you can put in there, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. But the idea behind a traditional or a Roth IRA is anyone can do this. You can go out and you can get this set up. You do not need to offer it to your employees. There's limitations on what these can do. We'll talk about the limits in a second. These are the smallest. Generally, when we look at this, the way that I'm going to kind of go down through this is probably the natural progression of where people start. If you have never put any money into a retirement account, never know where to start on it, traditional or Roth IRA are a great place to start. Once you've kind of outgrown those, then you go to simple IRA, then we go to 401k on there. But the idea on a traditional IRA and Roth IRA is those look virtually the same. We're going to talk about the limits and the other stuff. The only difference that you need to know is a traditional IRA is a tax deduction for you. A Roth IRA is not a tax deduction. So the way that a traditional IRA works is I can put money in there and then that grows tax deferred. And so what that means is that I get a tax deduction now, but it's going to be taxable later when I take the money out. The Roth IRA is the exact opposite. You do not get a tax deduction for putting money into a Roth IRA, but you don't get hit when you take it out later. The other aspect of this that is very, very important here is that Roth IRA, since we're not getting a tax deduction for it, there's a lot more flexibility. I can put in $5,000 to a Roth IRA and I can take that $5,000 out more or less whenever I want. Whatever I've put into a Roth IRA, I can always take it out without getting penalized or taxed. Now, if I touch the earnings, I'm going to get taxed. If I touch the earnings, not only am I going to get taxed, but if I'm not at retirement age, if I'm younger than 60 years old and you take money out of a retirement account, you not only pay the tax on it, you get a 10% early withdrawal penalty. That 10% early withdrawal is the same for traditional, same for a Roth IRA, same for a simple IRA, 401k. So any of the stuff that we're talking about here, if you take this money out early, you're going to get hit on it. For the Roth IRA, it's only the earnings. Whatever money you put in there, we didn't get a tax deduction. But traditional IRA, simple IRA, or 401k, if you take money out of that before you are 60 years old, not only are you going to pay the tax, you're going to get a 10% hit. So keep that in mind. We don't want to go super aggressive on funding these things because the last thing that you want to do is put 10 grand into a 401k, get a tax deduction for it. Things get tight. You end up taking that money back out because things are tight. You're probably already going to spend that money because, like I said, things are tight. And you're going to probably owe on 10 grand on a 401k, maybe $4,500 in taxes. They get you pretty good on it. Be careful with this stuff. As far as a business owner, whether you should do a traditional or Roth IRA, talk to a financial advisor. But especially if you don't have anything else set up yet, I generally go to the tax advantaged accounts first. So traditional, simple IRA, 401k. I want the tax deduction. The general idea on this is if you're self-employed right now, you're making good money and you want to save for the future, your income right now is probably higher than when you retire. You're going to minimize the taxes now. You'll figure out it later, hopefully at a lower rates. Ultimately, the proper plan for retirement is talking to a financial advisor. But honestly, the proper plan for retirement is a mixture of both. You got some stuff that is tax advantage, some stuff that is already paid tax on it, some brokerage, some real estate, some liquid, some e-liquid, a big basket of different things. If you have a traditional, if you have a Roth IRA, great. Next one on here is a simple IRA. So like I said, traditional and Roth IRA are not business retirement accounts. You don't offer that to your employees. Your employees can go get their own traditional or Roth IRA, but it has nothing done through the business. Like I talked about before, you started and you've graduated from a traditional and you say, hey, I want to put some more money in there. Let's go to a simple IRA. The thing with a simple IRA is you have to offer this to all of your employees. Now, are all of your employees going to participate? Probably not. Do you have to match it? Probably. So generally, when you set up a simple IRA, you need to match 3% of your employee's salary or up to 3% of your employee's salary. So the way I like to explain this to people a lot is the only ones you should really be worried about, if you're worried about the cost of this, is your highest paid employees. So let's say you had an employee that makes $100,000 a year. If they put in more than $3,000 throughout the course of the year, you would owe them $3,000 for their max on their simple IRA. It's a very similar thing to the 401k as well. Worst case scenario, you're going to be paying your top technician $103,000, not $100,000. I would argue that it's kind of immaterial. That's kind of rounding errors. And also, as we'll talk about here in a second, the limits for a simple IRA, we're going to save every bit of that, if not more, on the tax saving side. If that employee that made $100,000 a year put in $0, you don't owe him anything. We don't have to match something that he didn't put in. If they put in $1,000, we have to match $1,000. If they put in $6,000, we only have to match $3,000. That's the upper limit of it, but it can always be $0. Simple IRAs and what we're going to talk about in a second, 401ks, both of those have to be done through payroll. Remember, those are business ones. That is actually a business retirement plan. You more or less cannot just send money to a simple IRA or 401k All that has to be a payroll deduction. And I guess the money for the match side is sent in. But as far as the employee contributions on this, all of that has to be run through payroll. Next one on here is 401k. When we start with the traditional IRA, it cannot get more simple. And then if we go all the way down here to the bottom at 401k, it really cannot get more complicated. Most of what we're going to talk about here is a basic 401k. A 401k can be a lot of different things. If you want to make a 401k that has a pension, that has a defined benefit, that you want to put in a massive amount of money on it, you can do a ton of different things with a 401k. A 401k is kind of like a Ferrari, where a traditional IRA is probably more like a Toyota Camry or something like that. And we'll talk about this in a second with limits, but you need to match up what you have, without sounding corny here, what your driving style is. If you're not putting that much money and you're not really using it that much, why would you have a 401k and pay all this extra expense to not get any of the benefits of it? Same flip side of it, you're trying to drive a Toyota Camry 185 miles an hour, that's probably going to get a little bit sketchy as well. Find where you fit in here. On the 401k side of it, very, very similar to a simple IRA. Done through payroll contributions, matches go in there, very similar on this. As we'll talk about in a second, that they have different limits on there. Before we get into the limits, I want to make a kind of determination on a difference between a simple IRA and a 401k in practice. Really, we have two things, which is cost and oversight. A simple IRA is virtually free. They're getting harder and harder to get people to set these up because guys don't really make any money off of running a simple IRA. No pun intended, but they're simple. They just don't have very much administrative fees that you would see. Sure, some of the funds that you're in have got expense rates and stuff like that. But, it's nothing major on there that you would have to be worried about. On the other side of things, a 401k does have a decent administrative cost to it. Good luck trying to get that amount. I know my TPA is always a little bit cryptic about it. This fee, that fee, front end, back end. I usually tell people if you got a shop with 8, 10, 15 employees on there, just to have a 401k, you're probably spending $4,000 just for the luxury of having one. If you're sitting here right now with a 401k that no one's using, close that thing down because it is costing you money. I would argue that you should either utilize it or maybe even downgrade to a simple IRA. One of the things here that we need to mention is you can migrate these things, but generally not in the same year. So you can't normally have a simple IRA and a 401k in the same year for a business. So if you're looking at this and you say, hey, it's time to go to a 401k, we can't switch right now if you've already funded your simple IRA this year, but you can switch for next year. If we're going to go down through these limits here and you say, you know what, it doesn't make sense for me to be in a 401k anymore for next year, I want to go down to a simple IRA. Again, you can, but we just have to make sure that you do it on this crossover date. NAPA was built from the ground up to make your business more profitable and efficient. They provide an extensive set of tools to increase and track profitability in real time. NAPA offers the industry's best post-sale support, hands down. They train your people on site. Yes, on site. They also offer remote refresher training 10 times a week, and customer support is open 6 days a week. Give them a call, visit them, or join our Facebook community today to learn more. They'll prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. NAPA is always customized and tailored for your business, whether you're a one-man shop or a large multi-bay or multi-location company. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Visit us on the web at napatrax.com. That's NAPATRACS.com. Is your recruitment process draining your valuable time and resources? What if there was a partner who could take your recruitment efforts off your plate? Look no further. Promotive is your ultimate solution for hassle-free staffing focused solely on the automotive industry. On the web at gopromotive.com. Promotive understands the challenges you face when searching for the perfect technician or service advisor for your shop. That's why we've developed a platform that takes the hassle out of recruiting. Michelle Tanzi from Euroclinic said, I am a shop owner and recruiting new talent is so time-consuming. Promotive does the majority of the seeking and recruiting. They reach out to the candidates for you, and when they feel they are a good match for you and culture, they make the connection. They follow up throughout the interview process, and we make sure that the candidates are a good fit and the shop is a good fit for the candidates. I admire that they genuinely want both parties to win. They recruited and paired us with a solid B Tech and Master Tech. Both left a dealership position and are still part of our team. We are very happy with the character and culture match, and both technicians have become valuable team members. Visit our website at gopromotive.com today and join the growing community of shop owners who have found their ideal team members with Promotive. What are the limits of all of this? We got 3 different things to talk about: the traditional Roth IRAs, the simple IRA, and the 401k. And we also have 2 other categories here. Are you under 50 or are you 50 and older? For a traditional or a Roth IRA, they both have the exact same amount of contribution. You can put in $7,000 for 2024. For next year, they usually go up like $500 every year. But if you have a traditional Roth, you can put in $7,000 if you are 50 or if you're under 50. If you're 50 or older, you get an extra $1,000. If you're 45, you can put $7,000 into that IRA. If you're 55, you can put $8,000 in. Generally, anything retirement is going to have 2 different amounts. One for the younger people and one for the over 50 people. I'm not going to say older. You said older in your head, not me. On the simple IRA, as you can see, has a lot more that we can put in there. We can put in at $16,000 if you are under 50. And if you're 50 or older, that amount actually goes up to $19,500. So $16,000 for the younger, 15 or $19,500 for the more experienced people out there. That does not include your match. Let's say that you are on payroll, you make $100,000 a year, you're 55 years old. You can put in $19,500. Your business is going to match $3,000 for the match. That's $22,500 right there. Your wife, your spouse, whoever is on payroll, you can put them on a simple IRA as well too. If they max that out, they could put another $20,000 in there. If you have a husband and wife spouse with matches, you could easily put in almost $50,000 into a simple IRA. For a lot of people, that is enough money, and that is more than they ever want to do. If you're looking at this and you said, Hunt, I've maxed this out, me and my spouse have maxed this out for the last 5 years on it, it's time for something new, then that means that we need to go to a 401k. Just the traditional and a simple IRA, 401k has an amount for people that are under 50 and people that are 50 and older. So even if you are 45 years old, you're under 50, you could put in $23,000 into a 401k. Pretty good, right? If you are 50 or older, you can actually put in $30,500. You get an extra $7,500 there. If you're looking at this and saying, hey, if I'm 50 or older, I can put $19,500 in for a simple IRA, you almost get over 50% more if you do a 401k because you can put in over $30,000 there. Is there any reason that I can think of for you to be putting less than $19,500 into a 401k? No. If you are not funding your 401k more than what the annual maximum is for the simple IRA, then you are paying for something that you're not getting. There is other intricacies about this. It's a bit of an oversimplification on this, but within reason, a lot of times these companies are not going to come back to you and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Shop Owner, you probably shouldn't be in a 401k because you guys have only contributed $3,500 in it in the last 5 years. They're going to take your monthly annual fees for this. So check this out. Make sure that you aren't paying for something that you don't need and see if you can put some more money in there this year. What is the timing on this stuff? The timing on this for the traditional or the Roth IRA is actually a little bit tricky. If we want to get a tax deduction for funding our traditional IRA, we actually have until the deadline next year. If you're sitting here right now and you have a traditional IRA and you're saying, Hunt, I can put another $4,000 into it. Should I do it now? If you want to, yeah. If you know no matter what you want to max that out, go for it. You can do it now. Now, what some of our clients do for a traditional IRA is, and you got to make sure you file your taxes before April 15th, but they won't fund anything into their traditional IRA. They wait, we get the tax return entered, call the client up and say, hey, you owe $2,500. And they say, well, if I put 10 into me and my spouse's IRA, what will that do? That will wipe out your taxes. Okay, great. That's what we'll do. And then they end up funding that. So for traditional in a Roth, you have until the tax deadline to fund this stuff. If you have a Roth IRA, it doesn't matter when you fund this. If you have a Roth IRA, we're not getting a tax deduction for it. So it doesn't matter if you accelerate this and you write it off this year or fund it this year or next year. The only thing to keep in mind about these is these are annual limits. If you're looking at funding a Roth IRA, if you don't fund this until next May, you missed out on the $7,000 that you can put in for this year. So even though you're not going to get a timing on this for tax perspective, if you want to put money into a Roth, make sure that you get it every single year, because it's not like you can catch up if you didn't fund it for the previous year. Only other thing on a Roth IRA is if you make more than $230,000 a year, you can't fund a Roth IRA. Keep in mind that high income, we do start to see places where you can no longer fund a Roth IRA. If you have a simple IRA or a 401k and you're in that same position and you're sitting here thinking, all right, Hunt, I can still put some more money in here. Should I? Should I not? First and foremost, you got to make sure, like I said, that you have a good cash position. Simple IRA and 401k are both one-way streets, meaning if we're young and I'm putting that money in there, I'm not expecting to see it anytime soon. And if I'm a little bit older, I'm not expecting to see it in the near future, but maybe it's coming around. If you're over 60, you have a little bit more flexibility here because you're old enough that if you ever need it, you can take it back out. You get a tax deduction for putting it in there. But if you're old enough, you don't get that 10% hit. But either way, on the retirement accounts, don't get over your skis. Don't fund more than you feel comfortable with on here. But I would probably stretch myself because, again, we only get this limit once every single year. If you think that you're going to be a little bit tight on it, but the next couple months in the upcoming year will make it back, yeah, I would probably do it, honestly. This is something where if you look at this and you get a little uncomfortable every single year putting a little bit too much money into the retirement and you're able to make it work, you're going to look back on that, hopefully when you retire, and be thankful that you did that. Really looking at this stuff, the amount that you put in there is a lot less important than how long you have this stuff in there. I would much rather you put in $5,000 for every year for 10 years than to put in $50,000 one time at the end. Compound interest is a magical thing. And the earlier you can get this stuff in there, the earlier you can get it earning some money, the better. How do you fund that? And this is the big thing and the one we'll kind of wrap up on here because a lot of people get confused. So let's say you're looking at this and you have an IRA, you've put in $9,500 that you can put in $19,500. Hun, how the heck do I fund this an extra 10 grand when my checks aren't even 10 grand? If you have enough to take it out of your checks by the end of the year, then great. You can do it just like you had been. Instead of getting a $1,000 net check, it's going to be zero, all go to retirement. Sometimes one of the easiest things to do is you can just run a bonus for yourself. So essentially the way that would look is you go in, you run a bonus for $10,000. It would have to be a little bit more because we will pay payroll taxes, Medicare and Social Security. So we do a check for $10,500. $500 goes to taxes. The remaining 10 grand all goes to retirement account. And then my net check is zero. Remember how I said you can't just send money directly to a retirement account? Essentially, this is the way you do it. Hey, I need to do a kind of dummy paycheck to fund this so it's going to show up on my pay stub, so it's going to show up on my W-2. But that's the easiest way to just fund that surplus amount. If you look at, hey, with my regular payroll contributions, it's going to be this much. I want to max it out. Great. I'm going to bonus it and just send that amount right to the retirement people. Biggest thing on this is make sure that that is on this year's payroll. If that hits the payroll that hits the first week of January, we're not getting a deduction for it. Can we get aggressive on it? Can you accrue it? Yeah, you can, but just make sure you do it this year. Don't have a retirement plan at all? Like I said, now's the perfect time to plan. And some of these you can set up, but realistically, most of this is a 2025 plan for you. But don't delay. If you already have a retirement, hopefully this gave you some tools to make the decisions for the end of the year, hopefully save some money on taxes, and if nothing else, put some money away for your future. And if you don't have a retirement account, think to yourself, this time last year, were you thinking to yourself, hey, this is a 2024 plan? I imagine a couple of you probably were. Please share with friends. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Thanks again for joining on the Aftermarket Radio Network. You can find all shows on the aftermarketradionetwork.com and on your favorite podcast listing apps. So thanks again for joining me on Business by the Numbers. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you all next week.
You've been listening to Business by the Numbers with Hunt Demarest on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Hunt on your favorite podcast listening app. Let him know what you'd like him to cover. His email is in the show notes. Hunt is all for advancing the aftermarket.